So Metroid Prime 4 is an interesting game to talk about at the end of 2023 and talking about the early portions of 2024, because technically this game was originally revealed to us back at E3 of 2017. We then got the big update that it was restarted for development in 2019, but since then we've had numerous different Nintendo Switch games announced and launched, and even have more details on upcoming games for 2024 from the Nintendo Switch game lineup than we have of a game that we have known is in existence since 2017 originally. And there is a couple interesting updates floating around online around this game that I want to go over with you all today, one of which has to do with more rumor, speculation, talk territory about the game potentially being done other than some issues with cutscenes, and I'm gonna dive into that because I'm not entirely bought into it. But there's also an update spotted, I believe, by Super Metal Dave 64 originally. I will have his linked video in the description down below should you want to go check it out. He does a really good job of breaking all this down in detail, but essentially there has also been a job hiring, or multiple rather, that you could potentially go out on a limb and say that there may indeed be some kind of online multiplayer component to this game when it does indeed launch. And besides those two particular updates, I also just want to have a broad conversation on the overall likelihood around whether or not 2024 is the year we will finally see Metroid Prime have its big reveal, and whether or not it could launch and indeed be playable within that year. So make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your bell notification if you're new here to join Sunbro Nation. And with that, we have to first hop over to story number 1, which has to do with the claims making the rounds online, essentially saying that Metroid Prime 4 is done. And you can see the following post over on the R Gaming Leaks and Rumors, which reads as follows: Papa Gino's Metroid Prime 4 has been done for a while. Current delays are due to cutscenes. From his Discord, he posted on there a few days ago and didn't see it pop up here. Important other notes: he still thinks it's a Switch title. If it's coming to Switch 2, it's not something he specifically heard. Also, in another post, he is asked about what Nintendo is bringing to the Game Awards, but his source claims they don't know. We now know Nintendo completely skipped the Game Awards. This post is a little bit dated, but he goes on to say, the thing I've heard is Prime 4 is basically done and has been for a while, but cutscenes are apparently really bad, or were a few months ago, so that's what's delaying the game. I do believe Prime 4 will be a Switch title and not specifically made for Switch 2, but maybe that's changed. At this point, I haven't heard. Just the fact I know it's been basically in a finished state for a while, with the delay being related to needing to polish up the cutscenes, had me hopeful we could see it soon. But again, so far, I've heard nothing about what Nintendo could bring to the Game Awards. Now, first, we have to talk about Papa Gino's track record overall, because I'm not entirely familiar with this account, and while there have been some claims online that he's predicted things that have come true that might be very hard to predict, there also seems to be conflicting information with claims like this that he said from sources that we can't really verify, and they're entirely not true or don't come to fruition. So I'm not completely on one side or the other with this particular report, but just from a logic-based standpoint, I don't necessarily think that cutscenes are the big holdup for a massive AAA game that has so much more complexity to the development of giant open areas. And really what seems to 9 times out of 10 delay a game is just the polish and cleanup that you need within the gameplay itself. Look at Tears of the Kingdom. The game was essentially done. I'm assuming they had all of the cutscenes more or less done a year ago, but they decided to take that entire year just simply to polish out all of the bugs, glitches, and anything that wasn't seamless within that vast, massive world of Hyrule. And chasing down all of those little details within the gameplay is actually quite a bit more difficult than just creating a 3D render cutscene that you would assume that if you hire the right type of artist and staff with the technical know-how to pull it off, that wouldn't be the big hang up with this game and the reason it's been quote unquote delayed. And to that point, it really hasn't been delayed, because you would have to have a planned launch date for it to actually be delayed. It's just a game that we've known about for a long time. Clearly Nintendo revealed it far too early from when they were ready to actually show the thing off, and then we know about the development restart and all of that. So here we are in 2023 at the tail end of this year, still asking questions around it. Is it done? Is it not? Is it a Switch 2 exclusive, or will it be supported as a cross-generational title? I am more of that mindset. It might even just launch on the Switch and we get Switch 2 with backwards compatibility next year, and we're only really seeing it marketed for Switch. But I think if Nintendo's smart, they do a Switch version. They also do an enhanced, visually upgraded version on the Nintendo Switch 2. Hopefully it launches day and date on both consoles with no complications on that front. And I also don't think that this rumor makes a ton of sense, just for the simple fact that we really have seen Nintendo actually ramp up technically the marketing for this Metroid Prime 4 Ultimate release with the announcement and release of Prime 1 Remastered, which of course happened February of 2023 at the first of the year Nintendo Direct. And to me, I was always of the mindset that when Nintendo knows that Metroid Prime 4 is potentially tracking towards a finished state, or would be within reason able to launch in a time window that they are prepared for, they will begin the marketing ramp up by re-releasing the Prime 1 through 3 titles that you want to have easily accessible for a game that has 4 in the title, assuming that that doesn't change by the launch time of this game. And I think that we've seen the beginning of that marketing phase, and I think that it's highly likely that Prime 2 and 3 shadow drop together as a more standardized bundle pack similar to Pikmin 1 and 2. The rumor is, from people in the know like Jeff Grubb and Nate the Hate and people who were talking about Prime 1 Remastered before it was originally released, is that 2 and 3 have a little bit of a simpler upgrade when it comes to the visual style, and Prime 1 really got the quote-unquote big boy remaster, and 2 and 3 would get a simpler HD upres. And that leads me to believe maybe it's a bundle pack and maybe it drops at something like the February Direct in 2024. Then we're talking about the big ramp up from there for the Prime 4 reveal, and then we find out that it is a mid or late 2024 title that potentially lines up with the launch of the next generation Switch hardware. That's my money on that particular one. Then to briefly tackle the conversation around the potential for online multiplayer within Metroid Prime 4, which I am very much a fan of having as an option, even though I'm not somebody who's super drawn into multiplayer games. I'm somebody who thinks that as long as the multiplayer is not taking away from the great single player story mode, bring it on. More options is better. And in a modern day and age, you would expect online multiplayer for a game to also have online play. And the reason the speculation online is ramping up around this potentially being in Prime 4 has to do with some findings from Super Metal Dave 64. As far as I can tell, he's the original one to spot this and bring it to light. So again, all credit goes to him, but it does apparently seem that there's a couple job listings. One of them have to doing with somebody who needs to have advanced network troubleshooting and engineering capabilities that of course you would correlate to the idea, well, there's going to be some kind of online component to this game, and whether or not that's something as simple as online leaderboards or something that can track your time and completion in the game, and maybe you can even share your speed run scores or things like that, that's entirely possible, and maybe that's all this is. But there is also yet another job posting that Retro recently hired for, and the person in question has a history with being a concept artist specifically for multiplayer maps being a big part of their resume and history. So somebody who basically lays the groundwork and foundation for the look and feel and map and scope of a multiplayer level that you would hop into if you were to play online multiplayer or local, whatever Nintendo does. I'm assuming it would at least have online multiplayer. It may or may not support local multiplayer like we saw them do in Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, which I think many fans would be welcome to having back in a modern way to play on the Switch. I think that that was a lot of fun in Prime 2 Echoes. I didn't spend a ton of time in it myself, and Prime 2 Echoes still had an excellent single player campaign, so I don't think it took anything away from it. And again, I'm a fan of this idea if we do indeed see it come to fruition. So could we be talking about Metroid Prime 4 being done? Maybe the campaign is, maybe they're still developing this multiplayer component. Regardless of all of that, I do indeed believe that Nintendo knows the loose timeline of when this thing will be ready to go and when it will be ready to launch, because that's why we saw them greenlight the first step of marketing for the game in a big way, which is the Prime 1 Remaster shadow drop that we had earlier this year and that we can now play and enjoy. And I am fully anticipating at some point in time at a future Nintendo Direct, hopefully the first of the year February event, that we will get 2 and 3, and that should really signal to us that if Nintendo doesn't talk about Prime 4 at that event coinciding with that 2 and 3 announcement, that we are right around the corner from some kind of massive update for the game, and probably finally a look at the gameplay and hopefully some kind of launch window that may or may not coincide with next generation Nintendo hardware. But that's really where I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video. What's your wish list of features for Metroid Prime 4? Are you a fan of the idea of things like online and local multiplayer? Do you think that these job postings tie into potentially revealing any of that stuff for us? And are you of the mindset that this game is actually completely done and ready to go and could be shown off and launched at any given date at this point in time? Or do you think Nintendo is likely leading up for a later 2024 launch? That's kind of where I am thinking it will land. Or are you somebody who thinks it's even further off than that, and maybe we're not talking about this game till 2025, which I certainly hope is not the case. But regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch the video on screen next if you haven't already. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.